This conference will now be recorded.
All right, thanks, John, for again setting this up, and I'm glad we're hopefully going to have a longer than 5-minute call and get through things without having any technical issues. But we'll see what happens. But thank you, everybody, for making the call today, and definitely it's a good week last week with the updates that we had in the forum, the VLab forum that Steve had led us with John as well. And I think we'll go ahead and get started here. And looks like we'll do if Ken's on the line, it looks like he is. If we could go ahead and get started with the issue updates there from the VIT.
You're muted,
Sure.
Ken.
Yeah, so I'm unmuted now. So let me share. All right, so I mentioned that last time we're using, for our core development team, we're using an agile approach. We've identified a number of issues that are being worked currently by the team, and we've made some good progress with regard to that. One of the issues that we've been working on was the accordion web content navigation structure and template. That's this first issue here. And that one I can show you on the development platform. Go out. We've got this set up in our virtual lab support team, and we've done several rounds of testing, and basically I'll be having it go through one more round with one of our more particular team members. And so basically what this did is it allowed, we had something in the past with advanced web content, and it was rather convoluted. It allowed people to go in and use web folders, and then it looks at the web folders, and then based upon the web folders, you click on a link over here or one of these options, and it updates on the right. Well, we developed a custom portlet to do this. It greatly simplifies the configuration and setup, and this is something that's used in multiple communities, and it's been a long-standing request. It also allows for multiple level deep now. It gives some indication where you are. So it's a much improved functionality. So that's almost ready to go live. I'm hoping that if this last round of testing goes well, we should be able to push that out like tomorrow or tonight. If it identifies some issues, then we'll be able to make that change. But it also allows, one of the other things is, before the order of those folders was all alphabetic, and now it allows for the configuration. So you can explicitly specify the order in which you want these things to show up. So that's that, and you can also change the style of the presentation on the left. So we can change that to a tree mode. And so if we come back, now you can see it's in a tree type form. So anyway, that's something that's moving forward. One of the other tasks that we've had on our plan for quite some time has to do with the web content. Let me just check. Okay. So has to do with the My Dashboard, which are the personal pages, and that's moving along too. So let me show you how that's manifesting itself. So when someone logs in, this has not been rolled to production yet. We're testing the dev. But there's a My Dashboard now, which is your personal space. And so the personal space, what we've got there is we have your communities, requests. These are this is something where you can basically follow. It's similar to like Facebook or LinkedIn, where you can follow and create associations. We're going to change the language a little bit. By default, it was friends, and we didn't think that was appropriate. I think we're leaning towards using associates as the terminology. But the idea is that you can follow, and then what that then does is under the social connections section, you can then see your connections activities. And so that gives you some indication of what people that you may be interested in are doing in terms of the communities that they're joining, things like that. So, so that's there, and then your connections are listed within this portlet here. So we have the blogs on here in terms of the blogs aggregator, and then we've got a My Blogs page. So if you want to write personal type blogs, you can do so. And then if people make a connection with you, then those would be available. The main idea is that on my dashboard, the main page, this portlet only shows up if you've got requests, otherwise it's hidden. The same, the alerts and announcements. You can create bookmarks. If you have any contacts, you would be in there. And then if there are Redmine issues assigned to you or reported by you, those would show up in the list too. So this isn't, because it's dev, it's not working the way we would intend it to at the moment. So, but it will work properly in production. There are a couple of tweaks that we want to make to this. So if you don't have any issues, it should state that rather than. So that's that issue is moving forward. The other thing that we've been spinning, the other thing that's currently being worked, and it'll be rolled out next month. Shoot. Sorry, they're doing patching of our system, and so I'm getting notifications of that at the same time. So I was saying the other issue that we're currently working, and it'll be released next month, has to do with the My Communities portlet and making that category aware. And then also this ties into organizations. And so I don't know, let me see if that, if we go to the releases, roadmaps, go down to 1810. Yeah, I need to get this associated with the next release, which is 1811. But that's a VIT issue. Let me search for that. It's actually, let me go this way. It'd probably be easier to do it this way. So VIT, and if we do a search for issues, and so this has to do with organization. So there's, I'll pull it up in a moment and then come back to it. But the idea was that it was weighted very highly by the VIT, and the request was to make the communities organizationally associated with the organizations and provide a way to search for that. And so our developers already gone through and updated the portlet so that if we go to like the home page, we haven't rolled this out to production. We're just working on it. It'll be next month. But on the communities page, there's a list of my communities, and within there, it's already been updated within Dev so that if you add categories, and we've created the organizations as categories, if you click on them, it'll then filter this list. So any category or any communities which are associated with an organization will have a mechanism to be able to filter those. So So that's being worked by one of our engineers. The other two engineers have been actively engaged on operational issues. We've had an issue with load that's been a problem with things going up. We've identified that it seems to be related to crawlers hitting the site and spinning up lots of instances of the crawlers. So we have we've turned off the ability for the crawlers to hit our public pages for the moment, and we're working with Liferay, which is the vendor that provides the portal, to identify the root cause of what it is that they're hitting that's causing the load to go up and not come down. So the platform's stable at the moment, or is stable since we've identified that. And in fact, it was stable before. It would get to a point over several days where the load would be so high that you'd have to restart the service. So that's being worked, and we're putting in place some additional monitoring and the ability to do dashboards and things like that. So can we switch gears for a moment, because I have to address a production issue at this moment, and then I can come back and get to this, provide you an update on a couple more things I wanted to talk about, if that would be okay.
Yeah, I'll take the screen back, and we'll press ahead and come back to you in just a short while.
All right, so next thing up, I guess we'll go ahead and go to Steve.
Sure. Can everyone see my screen now? Just real quickly.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Go ahead, Steve. You have the floor.
Thanks. I have the virtual floor. Yeah, the VLab work never stops, so Ken is called to action. We will pick back up with Ken there. So from my standpoint, I think I've mentioned last time, and this continues, we are sort of in our full court press mode on VLab outreach. Todd Neeson, who's a VIT member from NOS, is our NREP VLab outreach director, and he's really been a catalyst for us. We did an outreach event at the National Weather Center in Norman, Oklahoma at the end of September, which was a big success. There are several different NOAA entities in that building: the forecast office for the Norman, Oklahoma, the Storm Prediction Center, the Warning Decision Training Division, as well as the National Severe Storms Laboratory and the University of Oklahoma Department of Atmospheric Sciences. So that went over really well. So we're probably going to be doing similar events. A particular question we have for our non-weather service VIT members is, their ideas on how we might and where we might do these types of outreach events for other line offices. Todd's from NOS, so we have a pretty good feel about that, but we're kind of in the dark with regard to NESDIS and fisheries, OER to some extent, although we know OER's culture a bit better. So our objective there is to sort of put boots on the ground and people behind the VLab web page, and sort of have real contact for a day or so with the members of different groups and give them kind of the consultation sessions, different training opportunities, etc., and engagement with actual people. We feel that is an effective way to reach out, because unlike other types of sort of web tools, the VLab has got the support team and our growing list of developers and so forth. So there are people behind the scenes, and so customer service and outreach are really important to us. So we're moving out on that. We're also doing the virtual stuff. we for weather service next Wednesday, Halloween, we're doing a webinar for all weather service managers, which is kind of a training / Q&A session. We could do similar things for the other line offices if the VIT members from those other line officers wanted that or thought it would be effective. We could certainly do that. We're planning to do some actual site visits to weather service forecast offices in this fiscal year. Let's see, we had the VLab Forum, the 100th VLab Forum last Friday. That's another ongoing mechanism that we have for, that's not so much on the VLab, but as R2O in general. And then we have the owners, projects and community owners meetings, which are monthly or so. That's another thing that we've had ongoing, and we're looking at ways to either improve the format of that or try something else. But in summation, we're really using this year mostly to try to do better outreach and connect with some existing project and community owners and see how things are going. So we're beginning that now. Todd is going to start trailblazing there and calling up, contacting some of those folks to see, how that goes. And from his sort of fact finding, we'll probably accelerate those types of outreach, follow-up engagements, because we want to make sure that people, even though they may have started off and been enthusiastically using the VLab tools, maybe things got stale or slowed up, and we're looking to see, why was that? Is there something that we could do to help them reinvigorate their effort, that sort of thing. So that's just a whole slew of things kind of that fall into this broad strategy of user outreach, user support. So hopefully at the end of this FY, we're going to be in a better position of understanding the needs, the gaps, and of course the VIT is a big part of that as well. And we, eager to hear from you on those things, as well as the normal technical issues that you deliberate on when you rank these tickets. So I'll stop there. Take any questions.
Yeah. Hello, Steve. This is Rick Method from Fisheries. Yes. And I was able to attend the NOAA Model Fair in early September. And I know there was one of the sidebar discussions there was with regard VLab, and I wasn't able to attend that. But I was curious if you got much feedback from the Model Fair from some of the units that may or may not be using VLab extensively in their modeling efforts.
So Todd and John were at the modeling fair. I was not there. So guys, can you answer Rich's question? Todd?
Yeah, sure. So can you guys hear me okay?
Yes. So
we, like Steve said, John and I, we set up, we had to create a poster, and we had a booth set up on the second day of the event. They had so many exhibits that we had to actually split up over, one exhibit could only be on one day. You couldn't cover both days. So we were there mostly from about noon to 4, and we did talk to several people. That was a heavy NOS presence in particular. NOS does a lot of the NOAA modeling. We already had some kind of well, I'm from NOS, so I already had some engagement going on with some groups starting to use VLab. We had other walk-ons that, came by and asked some questions. We did have a few people that came back after the fact to start requesting some services with us. So we found it to be a useful half day for us to be out there. There wasn't a lot of, I don't remember talking to anyone from Fisheries in particular, but I do plan to contact you on the side of this just to see what you think we can do to help the Fisheries line office better learn about what VLab has available.
John, did you want to add anything since you were also there at the modeling fair?
No, Todd did a wonderful job of summarizing things.
Okay, Rick. So
Great.
there you go. Go ahead.
Appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Okay. Other questions or comments or suggestions?
If you, this is Brian from the Weather Service. If Todd, you're planning on doing some outreach to the Weather Service, I would be interested in knowing what that is, including, Steve, what you mentioned about contacting community owners. So just keep us in the loop on that.
Sure. Yeah. Well, we're letting Todd do the initial foray into that and help us inform a more robust strategy. But basically, we're just going to be reaching out initially anyway and contacting people and kind of seeing how things are going. You know, it's a touch base kind of an initial effort, but we may get more formal and expand the effort because there are almost 500 communities now and about 1,500 red mine projects, and all of those have owners. Yeah,
and Steve, I mean, many of those communities are not used. This is just why one of the VIT actions that has been recommended, although we've had no action on it yet, is to decommission or look into what we can do to decommission some of those communities.
Right.
And also part of that is, as you know from the Weather Service, if somebody is setting up a community as part of R2O, in the Weather Service, there's a need to, and this is the way the Weather Service is set up, to loop in the appropriate SSDs and appropriate regional contacts as well, to figure out is this where we want to be going.
Right. Yeah. So I think we will be in a position to maybe take some action with regard to, you know, either obsolete or abandoned communities. If Todd, if we find out that, you know, the person who's the owner is, you know, like retired or something, or it's just not being used, then we can certainly at least save the things offline, I suppose, so that if the content, somebody else wants to come along and, like an archivist or something, we can move it out into the VLab archives to museum or something for posterity. But we don't need it taking up kind of landing space and being portrayed as something, an ongoing thing when it's not. So yeah.
Okay, just keep in the case of the Weather Service communities, keep the Weather Service focused in the loop, and just in general, again, we'll be interested to hear on the VIT what the outreach forays lead to.
Yep, absolutely. Okay, so I guess back to David. I'm back to John.
All right, thanks, Steve. Appreciate it, as well as Todd chiming in there. I guess we'll go ahead and keep going with John now on the items that we had to rank. Or the one item we had to rank last week.
Exactly. We have one on our plate to be ranked. We have some input. As you can see, we're still lacking feedback from Alaska region, Pacific region, Western region, and NIMPS, and NESDIS. So I would suggest that we perhaps keep the ranking process open, perhaps till our next meeting, to give these other organizational representatives a chance to chime in on this particular issue, which is should the VLab host video content, or if so, how would it do that kind of thing? Any questions on the status of this effort to rank 38295? Okay, then I'll show that it remains open, and I'll reach out to members who have not yet given us their feedback and request that they do so. All right. 295, there we go. All right. I believe that also brings us down to the candidate issue that we have before us this week, or this meeting. Let me pull that up. And that is issue 55533. And the idea here is that a particular member, Farida Amin, has requested some improvements to our Redmine Gantt chart capability. And specifically, this individual was looking for the Gantt chart to go out past 24 months. So there's the current restriction is that if you have a project with tickets or issues that have end dates beyond 24 months, then you simply see them trail off at that end period. So this individual is asking for a greater view into the future. They also wanted to have these various I guess grouped by certain elements, so that maybe you'd have things by FY, or maybe even sub-project or version, so that you can get a more holistic look at, or I guess a more broken up look of your Gantt charts. And that there's oftentimes these things have many issues involved, and so being able to kind of segregate them into these different categories would be useful. They also wanted to take on a more governmental look at the thing, so based on FY, fiscal year, which a current Gantt chart cannot do. And then they were hoping to be able to perhaps, if possible, manage team resources, I guess. So you can envision individuals and their hours available to work certain things, and perhaps some other resources could be tracked in the Gantt chart as well. So this is what this individual wants. We're proposing that it be a VIT endorsed ticket, and wanted to see if there were any questions that I might offer a solution or a question to, or answer to. Anyone have any questions? Okay. Do we have any objection to endorsing this particular issue that someone would like to bring forward? All right, then I will show that the attendees recommended that this be an endorsed VIT ticket. All right. And one other thing that I'll mention regarding this particular issue is that we have a potential, not exactly a solution, but an enhancement to the Gantt chart that would solve one of the particular things the individual was interested in, and that's the first one, that it would go out past 24 hours. And so the VLST would like the VIT's feedback on this particular Redmine plugin, and it wouldn't be the end solution for the request, the requested features, but it would be maybe an initial enhancement to the Gantt chart. So I will, between now and our next meeting, direct folks to take a look at the Redmine plugin and provide us your feedback. All right. So while I write that action item down, I believe, David, that brings us to our open forum.
That's correct, John. Thank you. Yeah, and I don't have a whole lot to bring up, and I don't know if there was anything that anybody else wanted to add to the mix. I appreciate Steve and you, John, putting the forum together last week. I heard from a few science officers in the Weather Service here in Central Region that they found it very positive, and we're glad to see some of the changes that have been made. So hopefully that continues to grow more and more users. And I really like the idea that of what Steve had brought up about doing some site visits possibly and doing more outreach into the community. That might be something of value to explore, having a side conversation after the call, or maybe next week, Steve. So I might give you an email and to chat about that, some ideas. Other than that, that's all I have. That's all I had for the forum. I don't know, did anybody have anything else they wanted to bring up?
Is Ken back on the line with us?
Yeah, yes, I'm back, and I can show a couple other things I wanted to cover today. So.
Okay, great.
Yeah, that sounds good.
So, John, if you can.
Yeah, I am moving to do that right as we speak.
Perfect.
Okay.
Thank you.
All righty. You should now have the ability to display your screen.
Okay, great. So one of the things that was long-standing, it had an impact score of 7. There are 2 other related things that had impact scores of 9 and 8, and I'll show you those as well. But that was to identify the activity level of the community. So Mike Giebler, one of our senior developers, is researching this. The nice thing that he's found, we're in the preliminary phase for this project, but we wanted to, just as a reminder, when people go to the communities page, there's no real way to, or there is no way today to know whether a community is active or not. So, the VIT weighed in and said that was something that would be important to be able to determine. And so LifeRaid has this nice capability dealing with social activity, where they track basically at the community level anytime anyone updates a journal article, web content, wiki, blog, forum, those all get weights. And so, and it's pretty smart about, like, if you're editing a web content and you make multiple edits within the same day, you're not going to get more credit for that. Whereas if you go in, and space it apart between days, and you do get some, activity points for that. So it seems like there's already some infrastructure in place. The developers creating some services that we can then tie into, so we can determine at the community level what that activity level is. And then I think we're going to be asking John to kind of be the customer representative with regard to this request, and kind of brainstorm with him in terms of how we want to signify or indicate the activity level associated with the community. So if others within the VIT have an opinion on that, that would be great, because we're at the point now where we can get the activity level, but we want to figure out how best to visually indicate that. So that'll be more information to the users, and then that we can then determine, when you're looking at the communities, if something might be interesting to join. If it's an interesting topic, but it has had no activity within the last couple of years, and that may not be very interesting to people, or it would be good to know that. So that's taking place. Then on the roadmap, so that's underway, and let me refresh this. Okay. And so that's working. The other is just general improvements to the My Communities page. That's related to the last one. I talked a little bit about that. And then related to that too, we kind of pulled in several different things. And that is add a field to identify communities by line office. So I think I might have highlighted this in the past as well, but there's the ability when we go into a community, we can associate it with a categories, and the categories have they call them vocabularies. But basically, what we can do is we can use the organization and set up those different organizations, and then when we create a new community, or we can go through the existing communities and identify those with line office, or we can even get further down the road, or more refined if we need to or want to. And then, like I mentioned, there's a category navigation will display those organizations within this other portlet, and you can click on it, and then it'll filter those communities. So that'll provide you with a way of only seeing those that are related to NOS or NWS or fisheries or OAR. So that's underway, and that's the changes have already been made to make this portlet here category aware. So, and I'll demonstrate that at our next meeting. So hopefully all of that's moving along nicely. Okay, so that's that. So those are slated for next month. Other things slated for next month at this point are we're looking at upgrading Redmine to the newer version 3.4, and that'll involve some work. We're also currently working, this was related to that load issue that I was talking about. We've had plans for a while to be able to provide an easier way for us to be able to search through our logs, the CPU load, the number of concurrent users, things like that within VLab. And so we've put that in place. We're actually doing that, finishing that up today within Dev. And what this is going to give us the ability to do is more easily determine when there are issues of seeing those associations, diving in, being able to search. So using Elasticsearch to be able to search the access logs and figure things out. It'll also give us the ability to create some dashboards. Initially, we're just going to do that administratively, but ultimately, I view this as something that we could do on the front end as well to like show today, when you log into VLab, you can see, you go to production. So if we go to the landing page, you now see the number of active communities, projects, and online users. This is a snapshot that's at this particular moment. We have the ability with this other tool, well, if we store this within Elasticsearch, we'll be able to create like graphs over time and be able to see, get more of a feel for how people are using the site, and then identify ways to improve it too. So that's there. Lastly, we do have slated for next month the search improvements. So that's been something that we've been working on, but not fully engaged on because of other things that have come up. But that's something we're going to be working on further as well. So, are there any questions for me? Okay, that's it then.
Thanks, Ken.
Sure.
All right, John. So I guess we'll keep proceeding down to the open action items, if that works for you.
Okay, sure. Let me pull up our action item list, which has grown relatively short over the months. We really have two open and active, what do you call them, action items. The first one dates back to our October 9th meeting. Ken had indicated that, I think at the request of the VIT, that he would post an announcement of some sort to let folks know about the recent Redmine changes that have been made, and then also, I guess, basically just to update them on what to expect or what they will be seeing in terms of these look and feel changes. So, do you have an update, Ken, for us on that?
So I put out notifications when we put out the theme. I'll have to go back and make sure I've covered this appropriately. So, you tell me Redmine changes to users. Yeah, let me follow up on that.
Okay. And then the other active issue that we're still on the hook to work with goes back to the 24 July meeting. And there was interest from the VIT on seeing some of the latest changes to the subscription manager. And the goal is, as soon as those changes have been sort of fully implemented, we'll have perhaps Mike Giebler or myself give you a quick introduction to the latest and greatest on the subscription manager, but we're not quite ready for that yet. So that remains open. Any questions about our open action items? Okay.
Hey, John, this is Steve. Have we discussed the Twitter with the VIT so far in previous calls?
Not that I'm aware of. Are you suggesting that might be something the VIT would be interested in hearing about?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. So perhaps we could have Tao give us a short discussion on what's to be, what the plan there is.
Yeah.
Okay, I can get that on our next meeting agenda. And, Twitter. Alrighty, cool. And that's sort of a nice segue into the remaining action or the remaining agenda item, and that's a review of our new action items. And so Steve has just given me a task to have Tao discuss our Twitter plans at the next VIT meeting. Let's see, we also, I guess Ken had volunteered to demonstrate how categories will be used in the My Communities portlet at our next meeting. So I'll add him to the agenda on that topic. We have, let's see, feedback on Redmine plugin. Oh, right, yes. So I have a action item to solicit feedback from the VIT on a proposed Redmine plugin. There's a, I believe Ken is looking for input from us on, and I'll orchestrate this, but I'm on the hook to provide the VLST input on how to visually represent the activity level that we have requested they implement. And certainly we'll get input from the rest of the VIT as well. Let's see, we endorsed ticket 55533, so I'll need to add that to our ranking spreadsheet. The current issue being ranked will remain open until our next meeting. So that will be there. Let's see, Steve has requested input from us on, particularly from line offices, but I suspect he would take it from regions as well, on outreach events that they would like to see the VLST support. And this is, focus primary on NIMPS, OAR, and NESDIS, but again, it would be from anyone. So I will be requesting input there. Alrighty, that's all I have. Did I miss anything? Okay, perfect. Then we will get those into the action item list and begin making progress on them. And I turn it back over to David.
All right, thanks, John, and again, thank you everybody for spending the time with us on the call, and and appreciate everybody having some input here. Looks like our next call will be November 13th, and hope everybody has a good rest of their day, and we'll talk with you soon. Thanks.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you.